Alright, people, it's time to talk about Pain and Gain. You know the summer is here when Michael Bay releases one of his movies, but this isn't necessarily a typical Michael Bay movie. It's low budget, it doesn't have that many special effects, and there's really not as much action as you might have expected. There are a few elements in this film that definitely make it a Michael Bay product, but there are definitely some new things he brings to the table here. So, Pain and Gain. I saw it on Sunday, and here are my thoughts. Again, spoiler-free review. The movie just came out. I don't want to ruin anybody's day. Pain and Gain tells the true story of a group of Miami bodybuilders who decide they're going to kidnap one of their wealthy clients and extort him into giving them all of his money and assets. The film follows their thought process on how they're going to do this, why they're going to do this, how they do this, and how they ultimately follow up this crime. Now, the movie is based off a true story. As I said before, you can read about the article on the internet, an actual event that happened in Miami. And I feel like the fact that this movie is based off a true story gives it a lot of weight, because some really ridiculous things happen, and while some of them were made up for the movie, the fact that some of them did actually happen in real life really hammers the point home about this movie that I really enjoyed. I like movies, and there haven't been that many movies like this. It's not even really a genre. I can't even call it a subgenre. It's movies where you have criminals who do dumb shit. They have their plans, they have their goals, they have a thing they want, but when they're actually executing their plans, they're stupid, they make mistakes, they do things they shouldn't, and ultimately it leads to them failing. And this Pain and Gain movie is definitely within that category. Another good example would be Fargo, and there's also Snatch. To some extent Killing Them Softly, but I didn't like that movie. But Fargo is one of my all-time favorites, and Snatch is very good. Just movies where you have dumb criminals, watching how their plans fall apart because they're idiots. And this movie has a lot of that, and that is really enjoyable, because that's both interesting to watch, it's interesting to see what kind of mistakes they're going to make and what stupid things they're going to do, and it's also funny. But the fact that this movie is a true story, based off a true story at least, in some ways makes it feel a little more real. Like, if this movie was completely fictional, you might see something happen and then you go, oh, that would never happen, nobody's that stupid. But the fact that some of the stuff actually was true and these people really were that stupid gave it weight, in my opinion, and it made me enjoy this movie more. So that's the general idea behind the movie. You have criminals who think they're super smart trying to pull off a complicated heist, and ultimately you get to watch how they end up fucking it up because they're dumb steroid junkies. So the movie stars Mark Wahlberg and Dwayne Johnson and Anthony Mackie, who's a relative newcomer, or at least not nearly as big as the first two. I really liked the performances that that all the characters gave, especially those main three. The Rock, in my opinion, has found his niche in Hollywood, and he's become very good at making the kind of movies that cater to his strengths. He's not doing that Tooth Fairy shit anymore. He's focused on movies like this, like the Fast and Furious franchise, and there are a couple others too, but I really feel like The Rock has figured out what he wants to be in Hollywood, and he's doing a good job tapping into that. Mark Wahlberg, this is the kind of role I like to see him in. You know, I'm kind of torn on Mark Wahlberg's career as a whole. I feel like he was the weak link in The Fighter. I really liked him in The Departed. He's been hit and miss for me, but in this movie he works very well. I mean, he looks incredible. Not as big as The Rock, but he looks massive, and he plays the role very well. It's a very fun movie to watch. The antagonist, if you can call him that, I mean, it's morally ambiguous, is played by Tony Shalhoub, who's been in a lot of things. I mean, he was one of the aliens in Men in Black. Excellent villain, if you want to call him that. He's an excellent antagonist. He's somebody that you really don't like, even if you should probably feel sorry for him, you still don't like him. really good performances all around, and a little more thought-provoking than your average Michael Bay film. If you think about average Michael Bay films, they're just stupid and, you know, flashy, and you just go to turn your brain off. But I think this one has a little more going for it. Um, if there were any complaints I had about this movie, Pain and Gain, um, Michael Bay has a couple of little problems that I find in almost all of his movies. One is they occasionally get chaotic to the point that you don't know what's going on, and what he thinks is funny is not at all what I think is funny on some cases. He makes some jokes, he has some humor in most of his films that I watch and I go, not only was that not funny, I don't know why anyone would ever find that funny, but this movie, those elements are toned down. There's very little chaos in this film. Everything kind of follows a progression, but there were still a couple parts where I felt like the way the movie was directed and the way the movie was flowing made things a little too chaotic to follow. And as for the humor element of it, I actually thought a lot of that was done away with here, but there were still a couple parts where I had the sense that I was supposed to find something funny, but it wasn't. But as far as Michael Bay movies go, I think this is the best that I've seen. I actually haven't seen The Rock yet, by the way, so I want to, but I haven't seen it yet. Does the best job of keeping things kind of contained and not letting them get too out of control. So all around, I have to say I enjoyed this movie a little more than I thought I would, and I ended up really appreciating it. I don't know if I'll ever see it again, but I thought it was definitely worth seeing. It featured something. I mean, the main focus of the movie is these criminals who are dumbasses, and that's something I don't see in very many movies. You have Fargo, you have Snatch, you have Killing Them Softly, and I can't think of too many more after that. So to see that was appreciated. It does that very well, and I think if I was to give this movie a ranking on a scale of 1 to 100, you know, for what this movie is, I think it was mostly exactly what it wanted to be. If 50 is average, I think this movie is like a 74 or 75. There were a couple of holes in it, like I mentioned, but on the whole, this movie manages to be a lot of fun without having too much glitz and glamour and action, and it really is, to some degree, a character piece. Now, some of that character piece stuff gets lost later in the movie, but it tries. So that's it for my review of Pain and Gain, and next week I'll be reviewing Iron Man 3.